Okay, it says we're live. So welcome, Byron Teller. And today we have Byron is with us today, Byron Wagner. So we have a really cool show, and I'm going to show off something I've been working on before we get started. And I'm going to be totally rude to my guests here. And I'm going to show off something that I have been working on for 6 months. I actually prototyped it in less than a week, and I thought this will be amazing. And 2 weeks from now, I'll have this cool thing. And what happened was I found out that while it worked locally on small files and all my test things, I scaled it up to production use and it just totally fell apart. So it's been totally reworked. I have probably 800 hours into this thing over the last 6 months. It's
Wow.
been my passion project that I've worked on, and I'm going to show it off here. And if you just knew, like, it looks like nothing when it's done. It's like every other good art form. So all of the performers that spend a decade learning how to perform, and then we do it and they go, oh, my mom says I have a good voice, so I'm sure I'd be good at audiobooks too. It's the same kind of thing, but this is with doing software development, something I did in my 40s and stuff. So I'm going to show this off and then we'll have a great discussion here. So let me do this real quick here. So I'm going to unhide this. So this is called ACX PreCheck for all those people that have used Second Opinion for the last 5, 10 years, whatever. I always thought that could be done better. And so if you need to know, will all your stuff meet the needs of publishers, you can drag and drop in files. And when you do that and you check them, then what happens is it goes ahead and now it's uploading those 7 files. I'm just doing a quick example here. And then it's checking them in the background, and then it shows them and gives you positives, negatives, sorted. You can go ahead and instantly, you'll be able to print this report, but it'll give you the answers to whether you met all the specs based on what you threw in there. And if you want to check some more, you can do it again. And I can't click, I got to click on this one over here. Anyway, point being, drag and drop your stuff in, ask it to check it. It'll give you a report. It averages, this is pretty wild. This took me a long time. It averages less than 2 seconds per file to do the analysis. And that's when we're talking some pretty large files. It'll do MP3, WAV files, FLAC files. And all it is you drag and drop your stuff in and it'll check it for you. And it's been this thing that I've kind of wanted to do for years. Finally did it. It's pretty wild. So with that, we're going to leave that. Let me close that down. So, Johnny, welcome.
Well,
And
that's great. That's really cool. Before we jump to Byron, since he's waiting anyway, real quick, is that gonna be are you gonna make that available for purchase for users, or how's
to
it gonna
start
be?
off with, it's going to be free to everybody. And then we're going to see what it costs me to run the servers that manage that, meaning that I rent lease server space. It'll
Mhm.
be a nominal fee if it like it might be $2 a month or something like that, and you pay for the year by buying it once. It'll be free to begin with for everybody to use, and they'll be able to get all sorts of stats. And if you just drag and drop in it, it'll do a total. Like something that you have to do all the time, Johnny. You want to know how many minutes for this whole book, and you've got all these files.
You
And
gave me this other thing that you gave me something
yes,
that did
I
that.
gave you something that would do that years ago. And now
Yeah.
this thing will, as soon as
I've
you
gotta learn
drag and
something new?
yeah, as soon as you drag and drop them in, it'll tell you exactly how many minutes total for that batch of files. So the thing is it's it's a tool that, almost everyone will be able to use, and it's pretty slick, but it's just hundreds of hours of work in the background that looks like nothing when it's done. Okay,
Well,
like the
speaking of a tool that everybody will be able to use, let's introduce Byron.
That's Mr. Tool to you, gentlemen.
Uh, that was such a great setup. That's
Yeah.
so Byron.
I'm not worthy, thank you.
Byron Wagner, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, and the only other minor thing, um,
Yeah.
my chat software that normally shows up on the right had a new version again, and it's not working this morning. So if I see the chat, I'll say it out loud, and we'll talk about it. So for the people chatting, go ahead and be sure to chat. And
If
even
they
if you don't
chat,
see
can
it,
you see it, Don?
they won't see it on their screen, but I'll see it on mine, and
You'll see it.
I will bring it in. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so here, ladies and gentlemen, first, Byron, thank you for holding off on that. Don's been working on this for a long time. We've been waiting to present it, and I imagine we'll present it for a couple of shows in a row. But I've known Byron for, like so many of our guests, a very long time. I imagine we met as I met everybody in this business at a APAC or something
Yeah.
some years ago.
Yeah.
I know Byron's been, I think, to, if not everyone, almost every New England narrator retreat. He's been to most of my splendiferouses. He's been around. He's been a good friend and a mentor to a good friend to me and a mentor to so many people coming into the business. Heart of gold, does a lot of wonderful things. And so we're just happy that you're able to join us. And that's all we have time for. Thanks. Okay.
I was gonna say, can we stop before it starts going downhill from there, please? I'll pay you.
So you have some exciting news. You want to jump into that? You want to just chat about how we met and all that stuff?
No, I mean, might as well get into the paid pimping immediately.
Yeah. So, well, do we have a crowd out there? Well, actually, we get a bigger audience
On the
after this is
replay.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, that way they know whether it's a safe episode or not.
Yeah. So, well, I'm on, so there's no guarantee of safety.
Well, actually, this is the timing is propitious. We're still in stealth mode. There's a one pager on the website, but so everybody watching this, presuming it's sometime within the next 10 years, will get an exclusive on the Abaton Booth Club. And when asked to describe it,
What
I
is
still
that?
call it abattoir.
or abattoir, if you're a friend of Johnny's, it's worth a special
That's right.
discount, but it also brands you forever.
You'll never finish a book in our abattoir studios.
That's right. That's right. All the noise. Anyway, the Abaton Booth Club, when people ask me to describe it, I say it's kind of a cross between a yacht marina, a trailer park, a health club, a recording studio, and the private old boys club from the ancient days with the leather armchairs and the cigar smoke. So what it really is and how it got started was 12 years ago when things were rather different. I would run into people who either had a booth and a terrible place for it in their apartment next to the train tracks or a freeway, or people who couldn't afford a booth or it didn't make sense for them to get a booth because they're on their second book or whatever. And I had the idea of taking my garage and putting a couple of booths in it. Well, I ended up moving to Israel for a whole bunch of nefarious reasons. But anyway, it had always been in the back of my mind, and then COVID hit, so on. So basically, what the Abaton Booth Club is at the moment we have 9 booths, the majority of which are Eckel booths, kind of audiology booths, perforated metal, 60 dB at 1K, like unbelievably quiet booths in a commercial space. So you could have 24/7 access, and you can rent them by the hour, the day, the month, whatever you need. And also have to give a shout out to Hillary Huber because she did something that also kind of sparked the idea. Hillary has the space and the budget for a booth and owns a booth, but did not want it in her house. She wanted to go to work, socialize, hang out at the Starbucks, and then go home. And the booth was no longer even an opportunity to cause trouble. So she did that. And she, years ago, rented a commercial space in Santa Monica and would commute to work on her bicycle. So that was also one of the the kind of seminal ideas for the thing. But the other part of the sales pitch is this: if you do have a booth, then it's kind of like when people own small planes and they put them in what are called FBOs, fixed base operators, and that facility will hangar the plane, wash the plane, maintain the plane, fuel the plane, and also rent the plane out on an hourly basis to instructors and students and people who needed it for a day or two or whatever. So if you have a booth and you're in somewhere near the Sherman Oaks area, or it makes sense, you can house your booth at our space and we will rent it out for you, manage it for you, and so on in return for a tiny, tiny, tiny slice of the income. So unless you're using your booth 24 hours a day, it becomes a profit center, possibly even paying for itself. So anyway, so that's the idea. And we have a lounge, Lounge, floor to ceiling glass, beautiful view of the mountains, refrigerator, freezer for, delicious, refreshing beverages or your lunch or whatever, microwave, all that stuff. There are bathrooms in the facility. It's a beautiful office building. The bathrooms are marble and tile, But I'm intentionally not showing you any pictures because your fantasy is even better than the actual thing. In any
Yeah,
case,
we often fantasize about bathrooms, so that's
me
not
particularly, me particularly. So anyway, I'm leaving out some stuff. Oh yeah, there's a separate room with what they call hot desks. So if you want to work on some paperwork with access to computers and so on, and not be in a booth. But I should say the booths are well, we have a continuum. We have small ones. The smallest one though is not 4x4 is cruel and unhuman punishment as far as I'm concerned. So even the smallest booth is a 5x5. And for those folks who like a little sense of history, four of the booths have peculiar names. They are, in order, smallest to large, Boy, Cheetah, Jane, and Tarzan. And they were so named because they originally were located in Tarzana at the Dion Audio facility, which has now been, Deb has let go of the original location in Tarzana and has the magnificent palace on the hill. Anyway, so I basically extorted her into selling me those four booths, which are magical, amazing, incredible booths with hundreds and hundreds of Grammy and audio award-winning titles that have been recorded in them, and they have no ventilation, so they still smell of them. No, that's not true. So anyway, that's the Abaton booth. If you want a tiny sneak preview that will eventually have photos and videos and so on, if you go to abaton.club as opposed to com, you will see that, and as well as some rather compelling illustrations of why you might want to use it. And more recently, we have some permanent, as in long term, people using the facility. One of whom has plaques on his wall, indicating he's got over 50,000 subs on YouTube because he's a gamer and a YouTuber and so on. I will let his name remain silent, but the other folks I can tell you about. One of them is Dan Warren, and Dan has a really interesting story in that he's done hundreds of audiobooks and gotten hundreds of awards, but he was starting to panic a little bit because he was having to turn down books because he didn't have a home studio.
right.
Because all the books he'd done were for the major. So, thanks God he didn't need one. And so now he's got a Studio Bricks Plus, the big one, in our facility. And also, I think it's okay because she put it on social media. Sarah Sampino, who's based in Atlanta, but lists herself as local in New York and LA to do on-camera stuff, was out here for a vertical, which is a term of art that means video that is intended for cell phones. It's kind of like a telenovela. It's this kind of overly dramatic soap opera-ish thing. It's completely stereotypical and cliched. But she was shooting that during the daytime, and then in the evening, she didn't want to let go or let down any of her customers that are for audiobooks. So she came in and used our facility in the evenings and was able to stay, sometimes till stupid o'clock in the morning. And she seemed very happy about it, thrilled, in fact. So, end of sales pitch. That's the Abaton Booth Club.
Let me let's bring up a few things about this because Byron was in New York. Was it last month? I think so. It feels
March.
like,
Yeah.
and with Christy Walsh, our dear friend, and they called me, and I went, and he showed me pictures. We looked at the pictures. It's an amazing space.
Thank you.
It's a great idea, and I do want to say there's it's a place in New York City. I'm going to bring in the guys there.
Yep.
Right. It's on 38th.
Vox Pod.
What's that?
Vox Pod.
Is that what I'm talking about? The 38th or something like that? Yeah. So they're really, so I'm going to have them come in because here's the deal. And this is what, here's me in my booth. Now, Joanna and I live in a one-bedroom apartment, small one-bedroom in Manhattan, and we're looking for another space. One of the things I'm having a hard time when I'm trying to move is, where do I put my booth? Do I want to bring this kind of very fine booth, but it's not attractive on the outside. It's an old whisper booth. So, Studio Bricks are much more appealing. But let's say you're looking for this. Let's say you don't have to have that. Let's say you don't necessarily need a booth in your house if there's a 24/7 operation conveniently located that can house all the stuff. That leaves your house free. Not two things. Leaves your house free to be a house and lets you go somewhere else where you're not going to be bothered while you're working because it's a workspace. A lot of advantages to it. And it's a great idea. And I'm considering, if Joey and I can't find a place, of just not. Here's the. I work too. I work a lot. I kind of need a booth. I just did a commercial. Actually, I just did a commercial last week that I didn't know they wanted me to do my home studio because they were under the impression I had Source Connect, which I didn't. So I ended up going to their studio, which ended up being a great thing. We'll talk about this. I'm going to move into this because one of the things that we're all missing since the COVID pandemic and stuff, we don't get to, when nobody knows how to handle social situations like we used to, and we don't get to go out and make the connections we used to. Everything's virtual. Everything's online now. When you get to go to auditions or get to go work for people, it's a special kind of thing. I used to get a lot of commercial stuff because I wasn't necessarily better than anybody else. I was just more fun to hang out with for a day. And that makes a difference. And I've told my students, and I know you tell your students, get your personality somewhere in your website, in your thing, in your elevator pitch, because they have all three of us to pick from. Here's three of us. Who are they gonna want to have fun with? You know, that's the idea. And when I went to this commercial, it was supposed to be just a few offline. I was there for at least an hour. I did a million different ad libs and stuff, and it was great. There are 6 creatives, the writers, everybody in there. They stood up and gave me a standing ovation at the end. I'm only saying that because that's an experience you don't get if you're in your booth.
Right.
But the idea that your booth doesn't have to be in your house. So there's a real break. I think it's great. I think your idea is brilliant. Can you tell us about the price structure a little bit, or is that too?
I can't. No, I can. But also I should mention that I will suggest something hypothetically, but I will deny it when asked directly. It could be that when I started doing my first audiobook was President of the Creation, about the superconducting super collider, and it was for Pre-Penguin Random House, and it was at their studios out in west part of the valley. And everybody took lunch at the same time, of course, which,
Yeah.
I mean, what? And so in the lunchroom, I met Art Insana, I met all these great people, and that was really cool. And then when I went to work at Dion, Deb would make lunch or, call in an airstrike from, Chipotle or whatever, and I don't fanboy often, but there was Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah.
Whom I had when I walked out of Beverly Hills Cop, it was like, screw Eddie Murphy and everybody else. Who was the guy that played Serge? Because he stole the movie. I was so impressed. And there he was. And I pulled him aside and I said, look, it's like, I did The River with Bruce Springsteen and No Frills with Bette Midler and Shot of Love for Bob Dylan, all this stuff. But it's like, I didn't ask him for his autograph, but I said, you got to know what that performance did to me. And I'm sure lots of people come. It was like I had that experience,
Right?
Because that the potential truth could be that this is all a bullshit excuse for me to have fun with friends.
Yeah.
So it could be, but as far as anyone else who knows me and loves me is concerned, this is passive income. It's a profit-making venture. It's it's kind of a do-it-yourself whatever.
Well, you have partners, right? Or a partner?
No, I'm just glad to see you, Johnny. I have no no, it's not a mouse in my pocket. No, actually, this is all. I mean, I'll change the story later after this gets on the air, and I'll just deny it and explain that I was drunk at the time, officer. But no, this is okay. All right, here's the backstory, as short as I can make it.
We've done it 3.
Yeah, okay. All right. My partner of a long time was unhappy where we were living. And so I have huge sunk costs in the studio that I'm sitting in now. I pimped my ride. I converted a 2-car garage into a 4-room studio, complete with a wet room, bathroom you can take a shower in, literally. And so I had to leave it. So I looked around. I knew what I was going to do. I was looking for an audiology booth, and I found a Wenger 9-foot by 13-foot booth, which is about the same size as the part of the building that I'm in now. So, and I bought this house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a 3-car garage and a separate guest or outbuilding with a 4-car, 2-car garages with 10-foot ceilings, because the guy had been a car buff, and a 2-bedroom apartment above. And so I got this booth, and that would all fit there and everything else. Well, in the too much information department, a month after I closed on the house, She bailed. It was a
Ah,
fabulous relationship, and I now had absolutely no use for this amazing property. It was a horse property in Chatsworth. All of the neighbors had tennis courts and swimming pools. In any case, so it was like I sold the place and I had this booth. It was like I had such a steal on buying the booth. It was like, well, yeah, I could sell it, but like, what if I put it in storage, but I expanded my storage place big enough so that people could come use it? Because I could get a space in the storage space that was big enough. And as I looked around, it turned out that because of COVID, the rent per square foot on this fabulous office building with a underground parking that's 2 minutes literally from my house by car or an 8-minute walk was
no one
less
walks.
expensive.
No one walks
In LA,
anymore.
you gotta well, I wasn't gonna move to New York. So anyway, it was, like, less expensive than my storage space.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, this could work.
Hmm.
So this is all an excuse because I wanted to figure out how to make money without selling that 9-foot by 13-foot Wenger booth.
What town is the, what
Sherman
town
Oaks,
is the
Sherman Oaks,
Sherman
California.
Oaks,
Sherman
it's all in
Oaks?
Sherman Oaks, yeah,
It's in the
Nice.
San Fernando Valley.
Yeah,
yeah.
and I know where it is. I want our listeners and watchers to know where it is. So when
But
they call
we have people, I mean, like Sarah Sampino came in from New York, to use it for a couple of weeks. And we have people, that are willing to drive in from Santa Monica because it's such a very nice situation and so on, and because they can't find anything locally that makes any sense for them.
that's
So we're
great.
good. Yeah.
It's a
That's
brilliant idea. Yeah, actually, both you guys have brilliant ideas. Don's idea to make this
Yeah.
super necessary ACX time check kind of thing. It does more than that. Your idea to do the now I feel I have no ideas at all. Yeah, I'm
I you
Ig
you have
ignorance
had
is
a
bliss, 3 words. Ignorance is bliss. Keep going, guys.
and I did put a link, so abaton.club.
Thank
And
you.
I do have a link in the chat so people can find your place easily there. We also have a question from Keith. Question for Byron. Oh, just so Johnny, you and I can't answer this.
right.
You've had an incredibly diverse skill set. How have your different skills contributed to your narration?
And I'm supposed to answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's for
Johnny
you.
can't answer it because it wasn't
Well,
directed to him.
okay, so this is all kind of, reverse engineering to answer your question, because I did the stuff and then went, "Oh, yeah, well, this is very helpful." Um, so there are 2 giant words that I'm embarrassed to use when describing myself, but I am, in fact, an autodidact polymath, which means I got crap grades in school because what I was interested in was not what they were teaching, and I love learning. But, so I would go to the library in the before times, before the internet, and learn about the stuff that I wanted to learn, and I love sharing the information. So the sharing the information and empowering people comes across in my being able to connect with the information. And I will tell people the hardest book I've ever done so far is the thing. It's called Development is Freedom by Amartya Sen. And it is the work that got him the Nobel Prize for economics. I'm sure he's a fabulous person and great at parties, but he's not an English native speaker in the American sense. He's from India. He is a college professor. And the joke in the business is an economist is someone who doesn't have the personality to be an accountant. And he he would write he would write a single sentence that would take up an entire page and have 6 nested subordinated clauses, right? And I would have to keep it be interesting and you compelled to hear the end of the sentence like 5 minutes later.
I mean, can I add one thing? You should get into politics because we've all forgotten the original question by
No,
now.
I can, but I've learned I leave a breadcrumb trail, and as long as there are no foraging animals, I can find my way back. The
I'm gonna tell Byron's story when you're done.
the
Okay.
question, please do. The question was, do your various, unrelated skills contribute to your narration? And the answer is they do. So the point is, all the different skills that I had, inadvertently assembled put me in a position where I was able to do. I'm very proud of the job that I did on that book, and so are many other people. But it took a lot of different skills to be able to take something that was never intended to be read out loud. it's a postgraduate college text and turn it into something that makes sense. It's like, yeah, you know what happens when you give women the vote? Stuff gets better by like a lot, he said, speaking to certain right-wing fanatical religions. Anyway, so the bottom line is, it's kind of like if you ever take a really good Meisner class, you prep the hell out of it and then you throw it all away. So when things are triggered, it's a very, I love the one-line description of Meisner. Acting is a genuine response to an imaginary situation. So when I would do this book, I was like, I was really compelled by certain concepts and certain things. So whether it's, animal husbandry or flying a small plane or scuba diving or, collecting insects, all of that stuff, absolutely, if you allow it, to do so, it absolutely informs who you are, both in a conversation about standing in line waiting to use a bathroom at a sporting event or narrating an audiobook. Ta-da.
Way to bring it around. I find it good. Let's talk for a second about some background, because I know you do a lot of things, and a lot of interest. But for me, and I imagine for you, and all the things you've done, the experiences you've had, people say, well, how do you incorporate that and use it in your audiobook or in your acting? I think that's the essence of all acting, is to take our experiences, take what we see, what we learn, and not just our feelings, but recognizing how other people felt and all those kind of things. It comes to play in every book you've ever been asked to do, fiction or nonfiction, and it's a combination. Now, you've done 1,000 things. Tell us, if you don't mind, how you started in the audiobook world and what your life's been like there.
Okay. And people keep asking these one-line questions with 30-minute answers. I don't know how. It's like,
Wait, before you do, I'm gonna tell my Byron here. So here's Byron, who is not known to be shy, and has something to say about anything. Here's how you know you're talking to Byron. I think I was with Phil Thron, Gary Bennett, I don't think Gary Tiedemann was there. Phil Thron, and Adam Barr, maybe Stacey. I can't remember. It was about 4 or 5 of us standing around, and we were in a room having a bourbon, I think. Yeah, probably something like that. And you were there, and you said, "I'm gonna tell you a joke." So I head for the door because I know you. Because I know you. And before I leave, you're right behind me, and you turn around so no one else can get out. And the guys who also know you are going, and you said, "I'm gonna tell you a joke. But before I can tell you this joke, I gotta tell you 2 other jokes." It's like an hour later before I saw anybody.
it's like rope-a-dope. You gotta condition them before you can give them the punchline of the good one.
I mean, I need 20 minutes of your time, but first I need 40 minutes to set up the 20.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So listen, did you ever study acting anywhere?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay, and then did you use it and get an audiobook?
Not exactly.
Close enough. We'll see you next week, folks.
Okay. Okay, well, first of all, I discovered something very important about myself by watching a movie, and this is relevant now because the sequel just came out. I watched The Accountant with Ben Affleck,
Love that.
and I was like, "Oh my god," epiphany, okay? The whole premise of The Accountant is there's this guy who's basically a savant, who's an accountant, but he's working for the mob, so it turns out in the reveal, he has an arsenal worthy of a Marvel movie character and knows how to use them and has all these, martial arts skill and everything else. But the point is, he's initially hired to, see if he can, like, suss out somebody skimming the books for one of the mob bosses. And so he comes in and he pulls in all these banker boxes full of receipts and, financial stuff. And he's drawn on the chalkboard, and he's got like 16 whiteboards that he's brought in, filling the room to figure it out. And then he comes in for 2 days, and like on his 3rd day or whatever, they say, "Oh, you know what? We figured it out. Thank you." And he's like, "Wait a minute, I'm not done." And I said, "No, you're done." And he realizes there's some, skullduggery words I can't say on this thing
Well, you
happening.
can say whatever you want.
And okay, well, anyway, he won't quit. And he comes back, to find out that he's not needed anymore. It's like, but he's not done. He can't not finish the project.
Right.
That's the setup for the entire movie, is because he's on the spectrum. I can't not finish a joke.
You
I'm not Ben Affleck, just
you'll
in case you're
recall, I'll tell the
confused,
audience, I began by saying, "How'd you get started in audiobooks?"
and we're gonna get there. But first, I had to set it up this way and I found something else. I have a TikTok where somebody else says, like when you're on the spectrum a bit, you realize that how important communication is. So what is super important is context. And just so you know, the context you need to understand what I'm about to tell you is my whole life. Okay.
All
That's
right.
the way this works. But now at least I understand that. So I'm
If you begin, "I was born in a and then go from there, it's gonna take a long show. Yeah.
I'm moving it. I'm starting it when I was 19, I was 28 years old. Okay.
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 So back in the 1300s.
Correct. I helped start the very first accredited school for recording engineering and record production. It was called the University of Sound Arts. I had 3 female students who were absolute teachers' pets, brilliant, so on and so forth. Okay. And I'll leave out their names just because it would take me even longer to tell the story. One of them went on to become Prince's engineer, and she then did Purple Rain. She was a tech, like soldering,
Yeah.
but she moved to Minneapolis. She became trusted. She became his engineer. She then gotten her PhD and is now on faculty at Berklee School of Music. One of them is the mother of one of my mentees who started doing audiobooks at age 10. But he had the problem that he'd only worked for PRH and he needed to, okay. And the third one, very smart young woman, she went on to get a gig, like, again, like kind of maintaining tape machines at a place that was replicating cassettes. And it was, I'm going to get this wrong. It wasn't recorded, but it was books on tape. So I lost track of her. 20 years go by, and I run into the woman who is the audiobook narrator's mother in a Barnes and Noble in 2010. How you doing? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm on this thing called the Facebook. It's like, oh, so am I, because they opened it up. Oh, well, I'll hook up with you there. So anyway, Kat and I hook up and I see that Janet, the one that I didn't know where she went, was there too. So I hooked up with Janet. Turns out that Books on Tape was purchased by a little company called Random House. So Janet is now the basically second in command under Dan Musselman at Random House doing audiobooks. And I just gotten interested in all this stuff. So I hooked up with her. We were happy to talk. I said, do you do auditions? She said, yeah. She said, but if you've got a demo, send me a demo. Well, I was leaving for New York. There's a whole story about that for my first APAC.
You better not.
And, there's this amazing guy, named Pat Fraley, and he's got friends named Scott Brick. And so he's doing this class called $1 Billion Read, but I don't have time to wait for him to do it. I need a demo. So I hire him to produce a demo at Buzzy's, and I submit it to Janet. And 3 days later, she says, you got your first book. So it's all about not crapping on people that you're working with 20 years before to set yourself up for a situation where, they're willing to give you a shot. Did that answer your question?
I forgot the question, but sure.
That's how I roll. Yes. How did I get into audiobooks?
You know what I enjoy? Making fun of you.
And I
You're
live to
You're so
serve.
nice about it.
Johnny, it's just like, how many other people would be willing to abuse themselves in that manner for
know.
your dining and dancing pleasure? I
That's right.
consider it's kind of like the Catholics that self-flagellate on their way
From
to.
the day I met you, you've been really wonderful about me making fun of you. It's our relationship is based before.
Yes, it's a codependent relationship.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we have an audience member, Sherry, here, who said today's episode is ask us one thing, and Byron will spend the hour providing context, but won't have time to answer it.
Guilty as charged, Your Honor. Absolutely.
That's brilliant, Sherry.
But listen, I am always delighted. I find you to be constantly, and this is important. It speaks to who you are. Constantly innovating, learning, doing new things, trying new things, reaching out, and also sharing. Sharing from the bottom of your heart everything you have. It's a gift. You're really, really sweet
Thank
about
you.
that, you're appreciated and revered because of it. Um, your willingness to help people out, your willingness to share this kind of thing, and this idea. I mean, you're kind of like Don, like that, always thinking about what can I do. Here's something I can. Let's see if there's a way to make this easier for folks. And what I like about this whole, yeah, I like you fellows, obviously, but what I'm really appreciative of is we've all grown up with the kind of people who say, "It was hard on me, it should be hard on you," like pledging a fraternity or something, you gotta go through hell week or whatever. And the idea that I went through hell to get somewhere, so you have to go through hell too, is absolutely absurd, and I know it is to all of you too. If I go through hell, I just assume I'll go through it, but I'd like to make your path easier because I had a hard time. It's not enjoyable. It doesn't mean you don't learn things. It just means it doesn't have to hurt as much. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of that from you guys and from real strong personalities and good people and teachers in the industry. Those are willing to say, you don't have to do it the way I did it. There's easier ways now. And I think that's important. And I think it leads both of you guys are entrepreneurial in spirit and extremely intelligent. And it's a joy to work with both of you. And I just think you really, really are assets. You're one of the reasons the audiobook industry is occasionally such a delightful place to be. Occasionally, it's not a delightful place to be when you get all these people saying, I've got a good voice. Why am I not working? That's what are you going to do?
No, I suspect that Byron, you end up with a lot of books because if you're curious like that, see, we're similar in that respect where I'm just constantly learning, studying things. I'm watching stupid YouTube videos about an aircraft carrier. Now that's really relevant to my life, just to let you know, because I haven't been on one ever. But I'm fascinated that they can get that darn thing to float. Has nothing to do with life in terms of me. It does not affect me. And yet, how they sling those jets off of the aircraft carrier and the mechanisms that make it work. But what I know that means is when you tell a story from an author's point of view, nonfiction or fiction, but if you were doing something, since you're excited and curious, intellectually curious about things, that's going to come across
Yep.
when you're performing because you're not just saying, well, a piece of wire is boring. I mean, you find a way to figure out the physics of the piece of wire, and that fascinates you. And having that fascination allows you, and it's why Johnny is so good at narrating. He's fascinated with acting and emotions and those things, and your passion comes through as well. Everybody in this business, yeah, there's a place for a lot of different personalities, but passionate people end up in this business because they get to share their passion with others. And so, what projects are you excited about coming up here?
The old song, when you're not near the girl you love the girl you near, so on and so forth. Oh man, is that politically inappropriate and sexist? I'm gonna get banned for that.
It's
Anyway,
not even the right lyric, I don't think. If you can't be with the one you love, baby, love the one you
no,
love.
no, no, no. This is a 40s song, not that one.
Oh, well, that's
Not,
different.
not no. Stephen Stills. That's his 70s interpretation of the same, concept. But no.
It's still a questionable thing to be teaching our young ladies of today.
Well,
It's
which is
I
why
admit.
I'm strictly referring it in the historical sense
That's right.
for context. Yeah, that's the only reason
You're
and
dancing
you
close to
brought
the
it up,
measure.
not me. No,
I didn't, Don did.
well, first of all, I wanted to make one comment. Yes, the it's not even a cartoon, it's just an aphorism. The pioneers are the ones with the arrows in their back. Uh, and, um, because I get so much pleasure when somebody turns me on to something that's really cool that I wouldn't have found myself. If I can replicate that experience for other people, not necessarily on the same subject or anything else, it's like, okay, as quick as I can tell it, when I was in the record business in the 70s and the 80s, and I would run into somebody at a club because somebody made me go because I had to go listen to their girlfriend's postman's son or whatever. And one out of a million times it'd actually be really good. And I'd say, okay, well, give me your demos and I'll spread them around and see if I can help out. And they go, well, I don't have a demo. I go, okay, well, uh, you don't have enough money for studio time or pay musicians. Nope. Do you have enough money to buy a reel of used 2-inch 24-track tape? Nope. It's like, okay, I have musicians and the drummer doesn't work unless he's in a band. And so him meeting people or investing some of his time as a barter deal, as swapping favors with me, I can get some musicians together. I work in a studio. I can do a barter deal for the studio time. I get some money for reel of tape, bring them into the studio, lay down the rhythm tracks, put down some scratch vocals, do a rough mix on the board, bring them in and play them a first playback of their song. And their heads explode. And they go, that's my song. That's me. But it sounds like a record. How did you do that? That is fun. That's unbelievably fun to enable and empower people. So by even sharing little snippets, provided you have the right context, there's nothing better than that. It just doesn't. And besides, when you find people, and in terms of the mentorship that I do, 20 some people so far, and it started because a mutual friend knew a guy. I had moved to Israel. Somebody else was in Israel. They were doing live on camera stuff. They wanted to learn about voiceover. And I said, oh, I want to get into doing live stuff in English in Israel. Let's swap. And we did. And then they understood. They didn't even know that audiobooks really were a thing. And in the first year after I dragged his ass back to the States to APAC, he did 30 books.
Oh,
Okay. And his name might be Josh Bloomberg, or it might not. But in any case, that was so much fun that, it's like I realized I really enjoyed that. And so that same kind of experience of bringing somebody into a studio and showing them what they're capable of that they hadn't really kind of understood. Since my own kids don't let me do that for them because they're my children, being able to have that experience and replicate it, it's like, we're done. We're done. And occasionally,
Let me see if I can get let me try a real simple one. Let's see if it just gets a quick, curt, to the point response.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
Last count, 4.
Okay.
We cheated. We had twins in the middle. I have my eldest is a girl, 2 in the middle, fraternal, bottom one's a boy. End of answer to your question.
You couldn't stop with just 4, huh? Okay. So I
You
mean,
need
with the answer to the
context.
question,
You
not
gotta
the
have
children. Not the children. I mean, the answer to the question.
Right. There's a
I didn't mean
story
that.
behind that one too.
So
Hey,
we have a
since we're taking
question.
a laugh break, I want to say one quick thing to one of our favorite listeners and favorite people. Happy birthday, Lisa Baarns.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's probably making comments, but I can't see them. But it's her happy birthday today.
Yes.
And it
So-
beats the alternative.
Yes, yeah, having somebody else's birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's actually at our son's house in Florida while I'm still
Oh,
here in
no.
California.
Oh, really?
So, but we've after 40 years of marriage, we celebrated different points if it works out. There's a question from Keith Brown for Byron. Is there a genre or style of audiobooks you want to work in and haven't yet?
Not and haven't, but would like to do a lot more of, and that's the ones that win awards and get great reviews.
Well, the second part's kind of your yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah,
but we all know the people in the business winning awards. It's kind of, but it's the same you're here in Southern California like I am. Anybody winning an Oscar or an Emmy, a lot of these things, there's not only being talented and great at the gig, there's a whole lot of politicking that goes on in order to win these awards. It's not just merit based that, hey, I sold more books than you or I have better reviews than you. It's a whole bunch of secondary stuff in order to get the awards. But so his question, as far as what styles do you like?
The answer seriously is, I tend not to do lit RPG. I tend not to do sweet romances. I really like lit fiction. But I also this was such an amazing long story, which I'll tell you if you insist. I was given Henry Kissinger's last book. And besides the fact that he's probably both a mass murderer and God's gift to diplomacy and changed the course of the United States outcome, it was really well written. And his co-author was Eric Schmidt, the guy that, helped run Sun Microsystems and then went on to run Google for 15 or so years. That was a pleasure. What a great thing. And then when I was asked, there's a professor, I think in Chicago, who wrote 2 biographies of Ray Bradbury, who was smart enough. Ray Bradbury kept every piece of correspondence he'd ever written. The guy got the rights to them. He went around the world. It took him 2 years to assemble everything else. So an epistolary is a biography based on correspondence. So he wrote this book, and the people that did the book were smart enough to do, let's do multicast. So when he would write to the president of the United States or an astronaut or whatever, you have all of these letters arranged chronologically, and they cast me as the voice of Ray Bradbury. It was like,
Cool.
that was freaking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was called Remembrance. And, and other things, I got to play 2 roles in a yearbook, Seth Rogen's autobiography.
Yeah.
I played the Canadian cop that busted his high school blow party, and I also played Woz, because Woz was a member of the Magic Castle and took him to the Magic Castle to research playing Woz for the biography of Steve Jobs. Well, I've been a member of the Magic Castle since the week after I came out to California in 74. So I don't think they knew that when they cast me for that role, but it was like, cha-ching,
Yeah. There's when people ask questions like Keith does about, or you mentioned you want to be in books that win awards. You've all heard me say this. It's easier probably for me to say because I've won a bunch of awards, so it's probably sounds different and maybe not even fair coming from me. But you have no say over the awards.
Yeah.
Whether I'm nominated for an audio, like if you want, let's say you want a Sovas. How do I win a Sovas? Whether it's an Audi's or a Sovas, you can put your own book in if you want. You can get an award. The question is this: now, if I enter in the Sovas, and I'm not saying anything against them. I think it's a fabulous award program. All awards are swell. But if I'm putting myself in, or Don puts himself in, or you put yourself in, you win the category, it's still cool. It doesn't matter who put it up. It's still cool, but it doesn't change anything you did in doing the job, in your performance. Because you're doing a book right now. I just did I was involved in epistemology. We did Dracula for Podium. It's coming out in July. I'm really excited about it. I mean, I think I'm the only American in it, but I'm not sure. But it's a multicast. Quite excited. I'm either going to be lauded or pilloried. I don't know which. But I really enjoyed doing it. Whether it wins awards or doesn't win awards, I have no idea. The work itself was rewarding for me, and I think that's the only thing anybody can say. I mean, it's nicer to be recognized. Here's an earphone. Here's a golden voice. Here's all the it's nicer, I suppose, to have the trophy than not. Nicer to be noted than not. But the only thing you can control, and I speak to all you out there, is doing the best job you can on the work you get. And that leads to more work, and eventually those get lauded or not. And sometimes, like your Ray Bradbury book. I imagine that was a big book and probably was looked at for an award. You never know. We're going to have Robin Whitten on our show July 1st. We'll talk to her about how they decide who wins earphones. I think you'll be fascinated by the process. It's not it's not a check off the box. It's if Byron reviews Don reading a book and Byron says, you got to give him an earphone. Well, he's got a good shot at it because Byron, the reviewer, made a big speech about it. So someone's really involved in it. So sometimes it's the same thing. You look at your Audible reviews. Great. That was the worst thing I've ever heard. The same book. You have no say over any responses. All you can do as an artist is create and then let everybody else interpret their own take on your creations.
And to be brutally honest, that response, it's a canned response. It's, when you go in a restaurant and the waitress says, what kind of food do you really like? And the answer is the stuff that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
So no, it's not. It's that answer, books that win awards and get good reviews. That's shorthand for
Yeah.
really quality work. That's what I
Yes.
wanna do.
Yeah.
I don't care about awards, I don't care about reviews, but it's really nice to be able there's a scene in the original movie MASH where the 2 surgeons are doing a favor and show up in Tokyo, to help out a general whose son is dying of this horrible thing, and they show up in golf clothes with clubs at the
Yeah.
door to the operating theater, and people are looking like, "What the fuck? Who are you guys?" And they say, "We're the pros from Dover," as in golf pros, as in it's a joke. They hand them the stuff, they get in the scrubs, they go in, and after they make the deft moves that save the kid's life, they start to walk out, and the other surgeons are going like, "Where are you going?" And the answer is, "Well, you can close them up. You don't need us for that." And so the point is, that's what I really enjoy being is the pro from Dover. Doing something that's very difficult that maybe not anybody else could easily do, and then just being acknowledged for having gotten myself to the skill set and or, the context to be able to do that. Again, it doesn't get better than that.
Well, so that dovetails into Chris Walsh ask a question. I'm working on a project that has similar issues with long subordinate clauses, which break up the thought. So, how do you approach it? How do you handle it when you get those?
You poor bastard. The answer is the thing and I'm giving away one of my trade secrets here, but the thing that differentiates someone who's really a great narrator and interpreter from someone who's a good book reader is when you are articulating, you're vocalizing the stuff on the page instead of the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. It's like that's people don't talk to each other that way. In fact, in the sentence I just said, I didn't know what the end was going to be at the beginning of the sentence because I hadn't gotten there yet. And it sounds like it. The "and it sounds like it" was a thought that occurred to me halfway through the first one. So it's thought, 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 thought. So even when somebody has like slaved away over carefully nesting those subordinated clauses, they're all different thoughts and they all do relate to each other. So if you can manage
Yeah.
to figure out a way to do that and then bring it back around at the end so that it's people will actually remember where you started and they'll go, "Oh, that's the closing parentheses. That encapsulates that thought, which then makes me understand this bigger thought." Then that's what you do or
Th
try
that
and do.
that question's asked to the right guy, 'cause I don't know if you guys are paying attention to the way Byron tends to speak. Here's the subject matter, and then he's big on tangents. He flies all over the place, but the tangents you'll find, if you want to remember the whole thing, comes back to the original idea. The subject always stays the same, but he has and we all do that to some degree. And a lot of these subordinate clauses frequently are here is the well, that reminds me. And before you finish the subject, somebody could be off on something else, but in their mind, the subject's still right there. It's all highlighting the first original idea, but we tend to think of other things, and that's what people are like. It's like when you do nonfiction, and whatever the point is, here's what I want you to learn, and then you say it 17 different ways. That's what's going on. And sometimes what I like to do is I picture an audience of people, some of whom seem to get it when I said it the first time, and some are still confused. It's for those guys that all the second, third, and fourth, all the other comments are there for to see if I can open a door so that what the first guy understood right away, you all will by the time I say it a seventh way. And that's how people speak all the time. And we have to get past the idea of reading a book to performing.
When I was a kid, if I wanted to learn something new, I'd go to the library and I would get 3 different books about the same thing. Because I'd be reading and I'd get stuck. I wouldn't understand what the guy was trying to say, and then I'd skip to a different book describing the same thing. It was like, "Oh," and the expression, by the way, is point of view is worth 40 IQ points. So by being able to switch camera angles and switch analogies and, so on and so forth, it's like, "Oh, it's not a flat two-dimensional picture, it's a three-dimensional model where you get to see the other angles." It's like, "Oh, now I really get it." As
So,
opposed to just being stuck.
when you're prepping this stuff, so if you get to something where it's like, whoa, there's like 16 clauses here, do you go through and you read them all? Because you obviously need to know where it goes and figure out which is more important and decide what you're going to emphasize. How do you how do you break that down?
I'm sorry, prepping? What is this? Prepping? No, it's actually simpler than that. Part of my experience was I got my FCC third class with a broadcast endorsement so I could be on the radio, and I could be in the radio station at midnight and take the transmitter readings and adjust the antenna patterns legally. So rip and read, man. The teletype would go off, it would have the newscast, and of course, the gag, which has been replicated any number of times, is the old hands would come in and quietly set fire to the top of the copy while you're reading it on the air. So you didn't have a choice. But so the point is, I could cold read the phone book, and it was actually to my detriment. And I will get back to the original question. When I came out to LA, I had been working professionally since I was 8 years old, doing magic and ventriloquism for kids' parties, and I had, the board shift, the radio station, all this other stuff, could cold read. And I got into a Meisner class and found out that I sucked. I beat my head against the wall for a year because everything that I had done was presentational. Everything I'd done was because as an introverted little kid, I could hide the personality I wasn't happy with behind somebody else. And then I found out you want to be really successful. You want to be Streep or De Niro. You have to be who you really are, vulnerable, and be willing to be an asshole on a stage in front of, 500 people or whatever.
So you've made that choice thousands of times. Very well, too.
Years of experience. But so the thing about all the nested clauses, it's a puzzle. It's like, okay, how in the world can I do this in a way that is interesting, much less compelling, and get the person to the point that the author really wants them to get, which is why they do the 16 levels of, Jenga and Matanushka or whatever. No, I'm sorry. That was a brand of, in the 70s, we had geographical names for herbivorous substances, and there was Maui Wowie and there was Matanushka Thunderfuck. In any case, Matrushka dolls, the nested Russian dolls.
Oh, yeah, nesting eggs. Yeah.
Right. So when the author has found it necessary to craft this nested series of dolls, if you understand, the most important question in any job interview is, how do we know when we're done? How do you, and it's not just a joke. It's like, if you can't articulate the goal of the project and the metric for how you can measure and know that you've done it well, how are you going to do it? So the answer to the question is, I don't go through, I don't diagram, I don't use colored highlighters or whatever. I look at it and I go, where's he trying to get to? And then once I understand kind of the maze diagram, I go, okay. And that helps me, again, articulate audibly in a way that I can maybe make it past the listener's defenses and sneak in there and score a touchdown.
Sorry, Jim, my dog walked out on you. Sorry.
Good choice.
Now, listen, we're nearing the end of this. So first, I want to say thank you so very much for joining us. And let's if you put it up one more time, abaton.club.
Yeah, that's it.
This is where you guys in the California, anywhere, the place in Sherman Oaks, I've seen photos. It looks great. And next time I visit LA, I'm going to visit because it looks great. And it's a great idea.
Thank you.
And I want to let you know that next week on a show, Anna Clements will be here. On July 1st, we'll have Robin Whitten, and I think that'll be a show you should all pay attention to. Don, for those of you who came on late at the beginning of the show, you can catch it on the YouTube. Don previewed his new beta testing for, what do you call it, Don?
I call it ACX pre-check.
ACX pre-check. So it's fantastic. And God, you guys are both just helping the industry and the people in it every day. And I applaud you and I thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
It's really, sadly, I don't think you get all the kudos and credits you should. So I'll give you what I can here. I think you're wonderful. I think what you do is fantastic. Both of you. And it's an honor to count you as friends. And I appreciate you.
Yeah,
so there.
You're as much as that as the other two of us anyway. So we appreciate you being here. Be sure to subscribe. Byron, thank you so much for joining us.
You. Thanks for the opportunity.
Subscribe, share this with your friends, post it on different groups. It always helps. Comments after the session's over, super, super helpful on YouTube. And as always, we look forward to seeing you on the wires. You have a great week. We'll see you, Anna Clements, next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye, all.